Guys, we are lucky to have Precious Muir here, and she's been at the Diddy parties, and she's about to spill some secrets.
Yeah, but so there's still, it's crazy too because there's still more happening in court. Like, everything is still active even though we're not hearing about it as much anymore. And the people may be fatigued like we talked about prior to.
Shocking, scandalous, and downright unbelievable. That's how many have described the revelations spilling out about Sean Diddy Combs and the infamous white parties he hosted. These events, once seen as the pinnacle of celebrity culture, are now under the microscope as former attendees come forward with harrowing stories of what really went on behind the glamorous facade. One of those voices belongs to Precious Muir, a former model and Playboy bunny whose first-hand account has sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. If you thought you knew the story, think again, because what's coming to light is far darker than anyone could have imagined.
Wait a minute. Say that again. Say that again. Back up. You're saying that there's tapes and they're being shopped?
Yes, there have been people already shopping.
We've heard about the tapes, but
yes.
The shopping thing is
yes,
new.
there already have been tapes leaking around Hollywood, being shopped around to individuals in Hollywood, but one particular person contacted me to shop a particular video they were in possession of.
So, Precious Muir, now a British TV presenter, recently broke her silence after years of holding back what she witnessed and experienced as a young model trying to navigate New York City's elite circles in the early 2000s. Invited to one of Diddy's legendary white parties, Muir hoped the opportunity would help push her career forward. After all, these gatherings were known as the ultimate networking events, where rubbing shoulders with a list of celebrities could open doors to life-changing deals. But what she found instead was a chilling introduction to the underbelly of the entertainment industry, one that left her feeling more like prey than a guest.
And the reason why I never pursued a month is because being Playboy of the Month, I was told there was insinuations multiple times that I had to do something to stand out to Hefner and the team. And that to me seemed like there was a underlining tone of, what is it that I have to do to get this role?
Speaking to the Mirror US, Muir described her initial excitement after being invited by a VIP host to an exclusive, invite-only event at Diddy's mansion in the Hamptons. Diddy's team had gone all out, arranging luxurious black SUVs to pick up Muir and a group of other young models from Manhattan and chauffeur them to Long Island. The trip itself felt like a scene straight out of a movie, with Muir recalling the anticipation building among the group. She was new to the scene, barely knowing the other women in the car, but the promise of glitz and glamour made the ride feel like the beginning of something extraordinary. But nothing could have prepared her for what she walked into. As soon as she stepped into the sprawling mansion, it became clear that the atmosphere was anything but professional. Muir described feeling out of place, hyper-aware that she and the other young women stood out as fresh faces among the crowd of established celebrities and industry insiders. "We were very vulnerable," she said, explaining how their inexperience made them easy targets. "People automatically knew we were new talent, and we were seen as fresh meat."
Welcome to Popcorn Planet's The Interview, the series where we get in depth with amazing people, and I'm so honored to have this special guest with us here. Precious Muir, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, my love?
I'm great. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm making sure I center you a little bit more. There we go. So honored to have you here. You have some stories to tell. You've survived the white parties.
The party started innocently enough, with bubbly flowing freely and music blasting across the property. But as the day wore on and the sun began to set, the energy shifted. Muir recalled seeing women dressed provocatively, some slipping into behavior that could only be described as uninhibited. It wasn't long before she realized that the party had layers, phases, as she called them, that revealed themselves the longer you stayed. By the time the night unfolded into its later stages, the event had transformed into something much darker.
Okay, so basically I was a Playboy bunny. So a Playboy bunny representing New York State. The reason why I need to clarify this is when you're a Playboy bunny, you are part of the corporation, and you are a bunny, and you do have a title and you wear a uniform, but you don't get a month.
Muir admitted that as a newcomer, she felt a mix of fascination and fear. On one hand, she was immersed in a world of opulence, surrounded by faces she had only seen on magazine covers or television screens. On the other hand, the blatant objectification she experienced left her questioning whether she had made the right choice by attending. You have to understand, she said, we were young, trying to make something of ourselves, and this felt like an opportunity to get ahead. But it came with a price. One of the most unsettling aspects of the party, she revealed, was how it seemed designed to test boundaries. Muir detailed how guests were offered drinks and shots that she instinctively knew to avoid. "I never drank anything that wasn't freshly opened," she said. "If I put my glass down, I didn't pick it back up. I was very cautious because I could see where things were heading." She warned her friends to follow the same precautions, advising them to remain vigilant in environments where trust was a luxury they couldn't afford.
But like I said, the entertainment industry is very, very, very messed up when it comes to, the bigger you get, the more you had to do to get there. And so if you're not willing to put yourself in that position, you kind of have to put your foot down.
The longer she stayed, the more apparent it became that Diddy's white parties were not just about networking or having a good time. Muir described witnessing behavior that made her deeply uncomfortable. From couples engaging in intimate acts in plain sight to the presence of substances she wouldn't touch. She heard sounds coming from bathrooms and bedrooms that left little to the imagination.
And it sounds like there was probably a lot of hidden cameras as well. Is that what is being talked about?
Yes, this was actually in his Atlanta home, at a home he had in Atlanta at one point. And it does seem that the person isn't like looking into the video, so it's, to me, doesn't seem like that person knows they're being videotaped. It doesn't seem like they're active participant in the videotape.
What made the experience even more troubling was the presence of young attendees who appeared out of place. Muir recalled seeing minors at the party during the daytime, a detail that still haunts her. Although the event transitioned into more explicit territory as night fell, the idea that minors were present during any part of the gathering raised serious questions about the judgment of those involved. Despite the unease she felt, Muir admitted that she continued attending similar events encouraged by her agents and peers who assured her it was an essential part of the job, and in some ways, they weren't wrong. Muir credited connections made at Diddy's parties with landing her a role as a green room model on MTV's Hip Hop Squares, as well as other paid gigs and photo shoots.
He is very, very dominant. Like, he wants to control the situation. He wants to control his inner circle. He wants to make everyone have a good time and enjoy his parties. And so, it is scary because you think, this person or possibly his social network or the people he's around could make or break your career.
Looking back, Muir revealed the psychological toll these experiences took on her. She described feeling trapped between the pressure to succeed and the fear of speaking out. You don't say anything because you're scared, she explained. Scared for your life, your safety, your career. You don't want to piss off the wrong people. Diddy, she said, carried an aura of power and dominance that made defiance feel impossible. He had this way of making you feel like he was in control of everything. Adding to the complexity of her story is the revelation that Diddy's behavior wasn't an isolated case. Muir suggested that his actions were part of a larger pattern within the entertainment industry, one that has been normalized over decades. He didn't invent this lifestyle, she said. He learned it from others. The names she mentioned, figures like Russell Simmons, Andre Harrell, and Clive Davis, are titans in their own right, each with their own controversies. Muir argued that this culture of exploitation is systemic, passed down from one generation of industry leaders to the next.
If you say the wrong thing or you complain or I don't know, there's an element where you're just, I guess manipulated in a way to make you feel like, oh, you have to please everyone around you. You can't say anything wrong. You don't want to say a bad thing, or when they're constantly asking you, would you like to do drugs, and you're like, well, I don't do drugs, and they're like, well, why don't you do drugs?
The pressure to conform wasn't just internal. It was enforced by the environment itself. Muir recounted how security at these parties ensured that privacy was strictly maintained. Phones were often confiscated, and guests were made to sign non-disclosure agreements before entering certain areas of the house. Hidden cameras, she claimed, were rumored to be placed throughout the mansion, capturing footage that could later be used as leverage. While she never personally signed an NDA, Muir said she knew others who had, particularly those who stayed for the later phases of the party.
Allegedly, these events to invite them back to these private mansion parties and hotel parties and God knows what else. But he was utilizing the branded events to be able to, get the girls to come over to his private spaces.
Perhaps most disturbing were the stories of manipulation and coercion that emerged from these events. Muir described how newcomers, eager to impress, were often pressured into situations they couldn't easily escape. It was a form of control, she said. They wanted to see who was easy to manipulate. For many, the allure of fame and success was enough to keep them silent, even when their boundaries were crossed.
There is so many people involved in this situation that works the machine here, that, Diddy's obviously the head of the whole situation, the king of parties, but there is multiple other people involved that are helping along the situation or, participating in some way. Because
as Muir's account unfolds, it becomes clear that Diddy's white parties were less about celebration and more about maintaining a power dynamic that served the few at the expense of the many. The question isn't just about what happened at these events, but why they were allowed to continue for so long. Muir's story is a stark reminder of the price some pay to chase their dreams in an industry that often values profit over people.
If they did in fact occur, their argument is more than likely going to be that this activity was consensual, that this person was a willing participant, and not only that, but that these individuals assumed the risk of being present at those parties, of engaging and voluntarily engaging in this conduct and being in those spaces, consuming and things of that nature.
The narrative she shares is both a cautionary tale and a call to action, challenging the entertainment world to confront its darkest corners. As more voices come forward, the hope is that these revelations will lead to systemic change, or at the very least, accountability for those who perpetuate harm. But as the story moves into its next phase, one can't help but wonder, how many more secrets are waiting to be uncovered? The deeper you dive into the stories surrounding Diddy's infamous white parties, the more twisted and surreal things become. This wasn't just about lavish gatherings with A-list celebrities dancing under the stars. No, these parties seemed to have a dark undercurrent, a hidden world that many guests only realized they had stumbled into too late. And as more people speak out, it's becoming clear that these gatherings were far more than just a good time. They were carefully crafted environments designed to blur boundaries, push limits, and maintain control. But how far did things really go, and who else knew about it? One of the most striking revelations comes from how aggressively privacy was enforced at these events. According to multiple accounts, security was airtight and no detail was left to chance. Guests were often told to hand over their phones upon arrival, ensuring that no photos or videos could leak to the outside world. But this wasn't just about protecting the exclusivity of the event. It was about ensuring that what happened behind those mansion walls stayed there. Precious Muir, a former attendee, hinted at something even more sinister, the presence of hidden surveillance cameras. While she never saw one herself, rumors swirled that Diddy's sprawling properties were outfitted with recording devices capturing footage of guests in compromising situations. According to some, this wasn't just about security, it was about leverage.
The plaintiff. So basically what that means is the money that they're saying Diddy has to start paying this guy on October 1st, right. Diddy's team is like, hold on, we need an emergency conversation about why this should not have been granted. Mm-hmm. And they awarded him a TRO, which basically meant that Diddy's team was not allowed to sell any property in that state or anything related to what could be used to pay the plaintiff.
This brings us to one of the most disturbing aspects of the white parties, the alleged use of recordings to maintain control over attendees. Former associates have spoken out about how Diddy reportedly kept a collection of tapes showing high-profile guests in compromising positions. These recordings, they claimed, could be used as a form of insurance, a way to ensure loyalty and silence. Think about it. If you're a celebrity, a politician, or an industry executive, the last thing you'd want is footage of yourself in a questionable situation surfacing. And yet, many guests continued to attend these parties, fully aware of the risks. Was it the allure of fame, the fear of being blacklisted, or something else entirely?
Diddy is now being sued in addition to what we just talked about by Dawn Richards. You guys will remember her. She was a part of Making the Band.
Dirty Money.
Dirty Money, the Danny Kane era. So basically what she is alleging, she's alleging a lot of different things.
And it wasn't just the hidden cameras that made these events feel unsettling. According to Precious, there were strict rules about what could and couldn't be discussed at the parties. Guests were often required to sign non-disclosure agreements, legally binding them to secrecy. But Precious herself never signed one, a detail she found curious given how tightly controlled the environment was. She speculated that only those who ventured into the later stages of the parties, the so-called phases, were required to sign. These phases, she explained, were where the real chaos unfolded. If you stayed long enough, you were no longer just a spectator. You were expected to participate.
There has been some updates in the Diddy $100 million default judgment that we reported on earlier this week.
Participation, however, wasn't always voluntary, or at least that's what some former attendees have suggested. Several accounts describe a culture of manipulation that preyed on the young and inexperienced. Guests were reportedly pressured into situations they weren't comfortable with, often under the guise of networking or relaxing. Precious described how partygoers were constantly offered drinks and substances, with hosts and other attendees questioning anyone who refused.
These are all allegations that have become shockingly familiar against Diddy in recent months, as he has faced lawsuit after lawsuit from women and men who have accused him of all manner.
The most chilling part, this wasn't just limited to Diddy's events. Precious and others have hinted at a wider pattern within the entertainment industry, where similar gatherings took place under different hosts. She specifically mentioned names like Russell Simmons and Andre Harrell, suggesting that Diddy learned these tactics from mentors who had been part of this culture long before he ever threw his first white party. This isn't just a Diddy problem, she said. This is an industry problem. And the deeper you dig, the more it seems like she's right. Take, for example, the presence of industry executives at these events. Precious recalled seeing some of the most powerful figures in music, film, and fashion attending Diddy's parties. These were people with the power to make or break careers, and their influence was palpable. But their presence also raises questions. Were they simply there to enjoy themselves, or did they know what was really happening behind closed doors? And if they did, why didn't anyone speak out? Precious suggested that many of these executives were complicit, either through their silence or their active participation.
Diddy has been under criminal investigation for months by federal prosecutors here in New York. And if there are criminal charges, many of them may look a lot like what some of these individuals have been describing.
The involvement of these high-profile figures also highlights another troubling aspect of these parties: the pressure on guests to keep coming back. For young models and aspiring artists like Precious, attending these events wasn't just about having fun. It was about building connections, meeting the right people, and advancing their careers. Agents and managers often encourage their clients to attend, framing it as a necessary step for anyone hoping to make it in the industry. But what they didn't tell them was the toll it would take. Precious described how the constant pressure to attend, to fit in, and to stay silent left her feeling trapped.
With this newest lawsuit, this would probably only expedite or increase the amount of allegations and potential witnesses who could testify against Sean Combs.
This brings us to the question of accountability. With so many people allegedly involved, from Diddy's inner circle to the industry executives who attended his parties, who should be held responsible? Precious argued that the blame doesn't just fall on Diddy. She pointed out that there were parents who brought their young ones to these events, exposing them to environments that were anything but appropriate. She also called out the agents and managers who pushed their clients into these situations, knowing full well what they were walking into. But accountability is easier said than done, especially when you're dealing with people who have spent years building their power and influence. Take Diddy himself, for example. Known for his dominance and charisma, he cultivated an image of control that extended far beyond the parties he hosted. Precious described how his very presence could be intimidating, making it clear that he was the one calling the shots.
And a lot of the evidence, alleged evidence, that's been gathered in this case was from those two raids that were conducted on his personal homes in Miami and Los Angeles. And the indictment names the things seized that he allegedly made videos of these performances that have been named freak-offs.
And it wasn't just Diddy's power that made him untouchable. It was the culture of silence that surrounded him. Precious and others have spoken about how fear kept them from speaking out for so long. Fear of retaliation, fear of being blacklisted, and fear of not being believed. What's even more shocking is how these parties seem to escalate over time. Precious described how the later phases of the events became increasingly extreme, with guests engaging in behavior that pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable. And while she admitted to leaving before things got too out of hand, she couldn't help but wonder what happened to those who stayed. It's hard not to think about it, she said, about the people who didn't leave and what they might have gone through. Rumors have also circulated about the use of certain items at these parties. During a raid on Diddy's properties earlier this year, authorities reportedly found thousands of bottles of lubricants and other supplies. While it's unclear how these items were used, their sheer volume has raised eyebrows and added fuel to the speculation about what really went on at these events. Precious herself admitted that while she never saw these items firsthand, she wasn't surprised by their discovery.
Clients describe MDC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in.
And then there's the issue of blackmail. Gene Deal, a former bodyguard for Diddy, recently claimed that the music mogul used recordings from these parties as leverage over some of the most powerful people in Hollywood. According to Deal, these tapes included footage of celebrities, politicians, and even religious leaders in compromising situations. He was always watching, Deal said, and he made sure he had something on everyone. If these claims are true, they paint a picture of a man who didn't just throw parties. He used them to build an empire of control. But what about the guests themselves? Several celebrities have been rumored to have attended Diddy's parties over the years, and while most have remained silent, a few have shared cryptic stories that seem to hint at the chaos behind the scenes. Ashton Kutcher, for example, once described his relationship with Diddy as bizarre, recalling how the rapper warned him not to prank him on the show Punk'd. Meanwhile, Usher revealed that he lived with Diddy as a teenager and witnessed things he couldn't fully understand at the time. It was pretty wild, he said in a 2016 interview. I gotta see some things, but I didn't really know what I was looking at.
Now, so what is next? Is he gonna be in jail in this facility until the trial begins? Is there a chance he could, get moved earlier than that?
As of this moment, as of this hour, as of today, yes. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to be appealing this thing next to the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to overturn the judge's order here to try and get him actually released.
Others, like Kelly Ripa, expressed curiosity about attending one of Diddy's events but stopped short of confirming whether they actually did. Next time you're on his boat, invite me, she joked during an interview. But for every celebrity who speaks out, there are countless others who remain silent, fueling speculation about what they might be hiding. So what do you think? Were these parties really as dark and manipulative as Precious describes, or is there more to the story? And what about the other celebrities who attended? Should they be held accountable too? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more celebrity news and gossip. See you next time.